as well as our special rapporteur from Malaysia. And just for your information also, this session, this webinar will be live on our Facebook. So just in case you don't want to be showed in our live, you can turn off your camera. And before Kah Yee moderate our discussion and introduce our excellent speakers from Art Dialogo Asia, Karina, and also Saka Philippines, Alyana Cabral, please also let us know on the chat box what kind of question do you have on art, human rights, and social change, so that maybe the speaker can cover it. And I will also remind you that we will have an art making session after the Q&A. So prepare your art material, okay, like papers, scissors, anything that can be used to make artwork. We will have an artwork making session with Karina in this workshop, in this webinar. So yeah, I think without further ado, I will let Kah Yee lead our discussion. Kah Yee, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Fatima. So, hi everyone. Welcome to our ARTivism and Youth workshop. And my name is Kah Yee, and I come from Malaysia. So today I will be the moderator of this workshop. So before we have the real thing, let me introduce you our amazing speakers for today. Okay. So first of all, I would like to first of all we will have Rastra Yasland from ASEAN Youth Forum. So if you guys are not the first time joining ASEAN Youth Forum program, then I guess you're already very familiar with Rastra. And he is the program manager of ASEAN Youth Forum, and he's also an activist and human rights advocate, focusing on sexual violence, LGBTQ rights, and labor issues. Later on, Rastra will present us the case studies on arts, human rights, and social change as prologue of this webinar. And then later on, we will have Karina from Dialogo Asia to share about arts for community building and social change. Karina comes from Philippines, and she's an entrepreneur and visual artist championing capacity building through the arts. She sees art and creativity as an efficient way of transforming the next generation. So she founded Dialogo Asia in 2017, which is a platform and initiative to promote intercultural dialogue and cultural diplomacy and community development through art. And then after Karina, we also have Alyana Cabral, which is she's an artist alliance for genuine land reform and rural development. She will speak about art for solidarity and sustenance. So a little bit information about Alyana. She's a musician, writer, and film score composer from Manila, Philippines. And her activist practice largely draws from her involvement with pro-peasant and anti-feudal artists alliance, so-called SACA, which is the Artist Alliance for Genuine Agrarian Reform and Rural Development, as well as from Cabral Montao, KMT, a women and arts multimedia platform co-founded by her. Yeah, so first of all, let us welcome Rastra to have a prologue in this webinar. Yeah, I will pass this forward to Rastra. Rastra, you are muted.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so just a brief prologue from me. So I'm gonna talk about art, human rights, and social change, and basically, the intersection between these three topics. And in my presentation, it's just like a case study. So I'm just gonna give a lot of examples on whether artists doing activism or activists use arts as tools and medium, or the third one would be like protest arts, and the fourth one would be arts used in the protest, and the fifth one, I cannot categorize it, so maybe it's anything in between and also beyond of the four things that I just mentioned. So basically, just to brief you all on artivism, it's like an intersection between art and activism, where we find a middle ground so that we can use art as a medium for social change, because activism is all about social change. And why we talk about art and human rights and social change together, because basically I believe that by creating art, we are using our right to create and using our right to express through arts. And arts also offer the opportunity for dialogues and conversations. It's just like humor. Sometimes there are a lot of topic or issues that are so hard to discuss in a formal manner. So you use art, you use humor, you use other channel to articulate that. What I love about art is the fact that it inspires actions. So that when you see art in the artivism, you see the art and somehow you would like to take action upon it. And art also help us to reimagine the world, reimagining the world that is not existing here yet, reimagining the world that, what if the world can be better? What if the world is more human? What if the world is, way more sophisticated than what the reality is currently? And I love the art also of the fact that every art conveys a message, and it's also about activism. You would like to deliver your message, sense of urgency to other people. You would like to communicate that, and for that, you need to, uh, art can facilitate that, because art can convey a message. Art also allow ourselves to be self-reflective. Before you create art, you should know also about the issues that is related to what you are going to say in your art. And it's also about self-expression, where you can express yourself, your voice, your thought, your mind, your concerns through art. So basically that. And here are some examples. So what I love about for the next several slides, we're going to talk about examples. So this is the case studies like from Vietnam, Nguyen Thi Tan Mai. I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong, but it's the art called ID card on 2014. What I love about this art is it's reimagining how if refugee has ID card or identification, so that refugee in Southeast Asia can afford a decent life in the country. So that's what I love about it. It's like a fake ID card made from fabric. And next one is from Myanmar. Lin's media show of hands basically show the hands of the political prisoners. The artist itself was in prisons for their political view. So when you see this art, you see a lot of hands and you see the number. You can feel how these people, their hand is no longer free. And this is really loud for me to see that, okay, this is the experience of political prisoners being translated through art. Next, we have graffiti. We have examples of graffiti, I guess, all over the world, all over in your country. There are a lot of graffitis. And here is a child crying graffiti from Thailand. The artist is Tot Saporn. It's a UNICEF initiative where they would like to raise issues related to child rights. And this is, if you see, you can see a lot of supporters names of the issues basically in the art being incorporated and integrated by the artists in the art. So this is in Thailand. And here in Myanmar also there is this art on COVID-19. And the 3 artists painting this art is being arrested also. So it's very saddening to know that our freedom of expression, our the right to express is being restricted. And this is the example of the arts that is the most recent one on COVID-19. And I forgot from which I have this art, but I love this art, the fact that this is like from the movie Star Wars, but these icons have these messages of peace, building of anti-war, of love, so that it really resonates a lot. When you see it, you definitely got it. Okay, this is like an art talking about war and why war should not happen. we should choose peace and love over the war. And this is from the Philippines. I guess Ali knows more about this one. But basically, this art talk about raising the issues on the internally displaced community, like the indigenous community, if I'm not mistaken, that is faced by military in the country. So they use the art, the graffiti form. And here the example. This is like from Indonesia. This is like from Indonesia, talking about the sexual violence bill that is not passed by the government for like 4 years. And this is from our special project mini fund ASEAN Youth Forum. This artist painting graffiti on the wall, and it's basically talk about violence. And the wall is next to football field where you can where usually boys who are can be easily become a perpetrator can see the message that please stop being violent. I love that this is in Timor Leste, the graffiti. And the next one I'm gonna talk about the border. This is, I love the installation. This is GR erected this big picture of children looking up over the border. When you see when you talk to children about border, they don't see differences. They don't see separation. So this is what the artist would like to convey, the fact that border is just illusion, that separation is just illusion. The next thing on the border is from Ana Teresa. She paints the border as if like the sky behind that. So when you see it as if there is no border, but if you would like to pass it, you cannot. So this is, I love about this artivism is the fact that it can imagine, it can help us imagine what if there is no border. Isn't it lovely? And the next one, this is from Bolivia. This is like a very expensive kind of a project, art project. So they use like a video mapping. Their problem is the fact that the government doesn't really talk about the fires in the forest in the Amazon. So the area Chiquitania is being on fire quite frequent. And this is happening in July. This activism, and they project the fire into the the building of the government, like the minister and also some important parts in the city. So the message is really conveying like the idea is, if the government doesn't want to talk about the fire, let us bring the fire to them, which I love about this project. Is like, it's just amazing. And one more thing, another thing is in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, they have problem with trash. They have problem with rubbish, waste management, environment in general. But in the city, there are a lot of people, collecting the rubbish, and you can see these people everywhere. So the artist basically goes to initiate this project like Pimai Karaso. It's just like a twist on Pin My Ride if you were watching MTV when back then in years. So the wagon or the car is being repainted so that it's very catchy, so that everyone in the city, whenever this person pass, they can see the wagon, and they can receive the message about trust, about the environment. So I really love about this. And because it's just putting the issue out there where people can see it. The next one right now, the visual arts is in social media basically. So people use art to protest, and it's just like I love the fact that people use the art as their poster, and it's just so much easier for people to convey their message. So this is like from Extinction Rebellion that is happening. If you see, they are very creative. They are using toys here. They are using toys here to protest because they don't allow people to gather. So Kahie, I'm gonna need another minute for this, and then they just use nice and easy attention grabbing posters to communicate their their messages. And yeah, basically you can search it all over social media about the arts in the protest. And the next one would be Yuana Zine. ASEAN Youth Forum has this zine where we collect the arts, artworks of the people, of young people in Southeast Asia. And you can see and you can learn more about the issues through the zine. You can download it in this link. I'll forward it in the chat box. But definitely one message from this prologue is youth is very creative. We are basically not only youth, like human being is a creative person, like it's part of creation. So what I would like to convey is use this gift of us of creating and creates more arts to convey our message, convey the message of social change. I guess that's all, Kah Yee. Thank you.
Thank you, Rastra. So right now we will have Karina from Adialogo Asia to share about art for community building and social change. Okay, I will pass the floor to Karina. Yeah. So while Karina is still preparing, so I would just want to remind all the participants here, if you have any questions, you can type in the chat box because later we will have a Q&A session with our speakers. And please remember that this session is live streaming on Facebook. So if you do not want to show your face, you can just turn off your camera. Yeah. Okay, Karina, pass to you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. So my topic will be about art for community building and social change. It's easy to talk about social change and then put like our demands to our government or elsewhere to institutions. But the question is, how can we actually affect change? And for us, we'd like to use art. Oopsie. Okay, so I'm just going to start with a fun fact. So this is a work by Picasso. I think most of you would know Picasso, one of the greatest artists that has ever lived. And this very simple line drawing has been used in an international conference for the first time, like in 1949. So that's it. Like when you want to affect change, I think creativity and design comes along together. Just like the examples of Rastra, it's really wonderful. And it's exemplar of ARTivism, yes, ARTivism in the new era. But then let's go back and so we can fully understand why, because art has different purposes. Like for instance, it's for ceremonies, of course, our artistic expression. It's functional, like when we go back to history, we create art just like the vases, like in the ancient Greek period, like they have all this vase and then the brass and all those beautiful things that which they use in everyday lives, and of course like to tell a narrative. And I always believe in this, it needs to be persuasive. Yep. And then when we combine it together, I think we can always come up with a lucrative solution for problems. And I'd like to share this according to Sung. Yeah, so arts and cultural impact related to community well-being. So there's the physical, and of course we have the social well-being, and then economic well-being. So when you look at this, basically this would be reflected in the goals of your art programs, right? Like in the economic well-being, generates employment, yield arts production, promote arts and consumption. But again, at the end of the day, it talks about how responsible we are with our creative content and what messages we want to share out there. So I'm not going to go through this because I only have 10 minutes, but I'd like to share a video. This is from one of our projects last year together with Sokya Gakkai Malaysia and Malaysia Art Society. So this is art empowerment video that we have. So that's just like a short video, and that shows as well how we manage to use art for community development. So these are just like one of our programs, and because we've always believed that art can be a good tool for collaboration. And just for instance, like we share, like we do have this flagship program called Art Dialogo. So we have run it for 5 cycles now, and we have run it in 3 countries around Southeast Asia. And we'd like to create like meaningful dialogues and involve young people as well and take part on what is change. So it's also a good way for us to break stereotypes. Yeah, because like when we talk about different races within Southeast Asia, of course we do have stereotypes, but the more we know about a certain culture, the less we judge each other and embrace unity in diversity. So we managed to also work with local government units and different institutions. Like sometimes we just like wanted to make our initiatives like very small, but then it grew bigger and bigger. So now our presence is just like around Asia and Europe as well. So these are some of our projects in Kazakhstan, in Malaysia, in Philippines, and we work with people of different backgrounds. And when you start working with people of different backgrounds, then you learn to be more inclusive. Yeah, so we do have a lot of capacity building and cross-cultural workshops. And yes, so because of the pandemic, we have to move our platforms online, and we created different programs where people of different backgrounds can come join together. So because we always believe that art harmonizes everything, it allows us to understand our history as a society, give us introspection, and foresee what we could become as a whole, regardless of our differences. So art indeed beautifies and add meaning to the fragments of the world. So with this, we actually, look beyond the aesthetics of art. So I mean, aesthetics, like of course you see it as the art itself, it's beautiful, you admire it, but then there's the meaning behind it and the purpose. And I always believe making your purpose very real. Yeah. So I've been painting since I was a kid, and I love community development and combined it, created the career out of it, but just like sharing what we did during the pandemic as well. So together with the local government in there, we have the artworks of the children that we have worked with be flashed around electronic billboards in Almaty, Kazakhstan. So also, it's true, we also like to put up like a collaborative activity. So our approach is more from bottom up. Yeah, bottom up approach. That's how we do or design our project. So this is our mural painting design for the ASEAN celebration in Madrid, Spain. That was last March. And I'm just like a fun fact, like the very day that they announced that coronavirus is a pandemic, well, we took this picture. So we just have to wait, and perhaps maybe one day you can come join me. We can go elsewhere and create like colorful walls together. So I'm just going to give you a little something to ponder on, because these are things that you need to consider when you design your project one day. Yep. So the problem you wish to address or cause you race about should be visibly there, like defined for who, where, what, and when. So setting the parameters and mechanisms are very important. So the capacity, that's one thing, and availability of resources. I know young people, sometimes you will always talk about like we don't have much resources, but trust me, I've been on that path, I've been on that route, and I just look into my social capacity. What do I have for now? And for me, I have art. It's very personal, and that's what I do. And now we have grown. And consider interdependence. I know all of you are brilliant, intelligent, and all that, but the world needs more artists, story makers, storytellers, and that's how we can value interdependence. Yeah, so that's the way. And later on, we'll be doing some art activity, and we'll do more sharing on that. So that's my presentation, keeping it brief, and see you in a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. Yeah, you may stop sharing. All right, thank you, Karina, for the wonderful information. Okay, so next we will have Alyana to speak about art for solidarity and sustenance. So we will have Alyana. Yeah, cool. So I pass the floor to you. Alyana, are you talking? Because we cannot hear you. So to everyone, if you have any questions, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you see my
Yes, we can.
screen?
Yes, we can. We can
Okay.
see your screen.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Alyana from SACA. SACA is an artist alliance that works closely with the sector of peasants and farmers community in the Philippines to help advance their struggles for genuine agrarian reform. So now I just want to show some examples of the recent creative actions that SACA has participated in here during the pandemic. So the art I will be presenting are very specific to these issues, but I will try to keep it short. So my topic is supposed to be about solidarity and sustenance. So I want to talk about how it relates together, and with solidarity, maybe I will talk about how art is a protest in itself and how our struggles to uphold our rights is also a creative action in itself, and how this solidarity can be used as a weapon against oppression of our governments. And on the other hand, sustenance, I'll talk about that too in the context of how art can help sustain each of our communities, especially during rehabilitation, during crisis and calamities. So, okay, maybe just a quick context, like here, now is a very crucial time for artists and activists because of the increasing suppression and severe fascism by the Philippine government. So because there is an anti-terrorism law passed by the Duterte government, which aims to silence dissent, opinion, and criticism against any of any individual, whether you and to tag them as terrorists. So there have been many victims of red tagging. There is this worsening phenomenon now called red tagging, which is a form of silencing dissent or criticism by labeling the person as a communist terrorist. So there have been many victims of this, artists and activists included, and even innocent people, innocent communities. So here is one example of a poster that shows the recent count of peasant killings in the Philippines since Duterte came to power. There have been 290 peasants killed. Okay. Then the next, Saka also often does comics and visual arts in promoting these issues and raising awareness about these campaigns. So this is just an example. Hukumang Magbubukid. This is a comic released during the International Day of Action Against Peasant Killings. And then here on the right is like a Voltes 5 graphic about the Bolsinas. He led the operations of killings of farmers and peasants in Negros Island in the Philippines. And so Saka responded to that by releasing this visual. And also, there are some on-ground actions by progressive organizations up to now, even if the government has a very restrictive and militaristic approach by restricting people's mobilization. But even so, collectives and organizations still come out to the street to protest for their rights. And this is just one of some of the pictures from the International Day of Action Against Peasant Killings, where Saka participated by doing a standee, like a big standee of a woman farmer holding Duterte, which was the effigy that was burned for that day. Is another example, just a small like children's story also released on Saka's Facebook page, calling for mass testing and defending farmers and food security. Saka has also recently participated in a mural making activity for World Hunger Day. So this was many artist collectives participated here. This was a very long wall beside the University of the Philippines, here in Manila, and everybody participated in making colorful walls. So yeah, it was interesting. And also part of the awareness raising campaigns and campaigns for justice is our on ground concerts. So before, during the pandemic, since public gatherings were banned, we tried to do mobile concerts. But now, as the security is loosening up, um, uh, in relation to the lockdown protocols, we were able to do face-to-face concerts. Like on this was in Heroes Memorial Park in Quezon City. So yeah, many artists also performed here. And here is an example of a poem by Randall Echanis. Randall Echanis is peasant leader and advocate, and he was the Secretary General of the Peasant Movement of the Philippines. He was brutally killed last August during the pandemic, while he was going through medical rehabilitation, and he was also one of the leaders pushing for the peace process in the Philippines, between the government and the National Democratic Front. So this was one of the poems that he wrote. It's in Filipino, but basically it just addresses fascism here in the country. Hindi ko kayo titigilang means I will not stop, like I will not stop fighting you, something like that. And then on the right is a painting done by one of the members of Saka as a tribute to Randall Echanis. So this song was also this poem was also turned into a song, and there's also a music video for the song. So if you want to check it out, you can go to Saka's Facebook page. So these are just some of the examples of solidarity activities and artworks and creative outputs that Saka has recently done. Um, but now maybe I can go on to sustenance. So I talked about solidarity. Now we can talk about sustenance because of the recent typhoons that have affected communities here. Saka has responded by continuing its relief operations because since the COVID pandemic, um, Saka has been joining forces with uh, Tulong Anak Pawis, which is a relief effort in the Philippines that helps communities get aid because they are not getting enough aid from the government since the pandemic. So these are just some of the examples of the posters, just as inspiration for future calamities that our countries may experience, as since we are near the equator and typhoons always and calamities always occur. So these posters have been very effective in helping us raise donations for the communities that are most severely affected by the typhoon. So there, these are just some examples. And then this one, I like this one, the one on the right, because it's very practical. Like uh, because sometimes people are not sure what to donate, right? So this poster effectively illustrates the things that are exactly needed by those people in the evacuation centers, like water, candles, face masks, flashlights. Yeah. And then, aside from that, one of the on-ground relief operation activities that Saka participates in is Tulong Anak Pawis Kitchen, which is a community kitchen that is set up in those areas affected by the typhoon. So artists come together, cook with the residents, and um, help them establish their own reserves of water and food. This is one of the recipes that Saka has been serving in the relief operations, and we also released this as like a recipe instruction, so you can learn how to cook it at home. And hopefully also be able to use it for emergency situations in your respective communities. And if relief operations are needed to be done, um, there are some recommended recipes to prepare. So yeah. And also the last, maybe some last thing I want to share. This is the most recent creative action that Saka has done recently. It's a protest art exhibition. It's a street exhibition for our fisher folk because recently, the last November 21 was World Fisheries Day. So Saka has organized a street art exhibit in front of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. So this was a protest action, but we also took the opportunity to have an exhibit right then and there. So the artists who participated created artworks in the shape of sails, bearing the calls of the fisher folk in their rights to fish in our own waters. So yeah, yes, that's it. There are so many other creative actions by other artist collectives and progressive organizations, and I would also like to know about there's the creative actions in your respective communities, maybe later in the open forum. But just as a last word, I guess what I would like to say is solidarity um, can be something that can be used against oppression, and sustenance and strength is important amidst the government negligence that's happening right now, and art plays a very crucial role in all of that as well. So it's important to, especially now during time of the COVID and typhoons, it's important to help sustain our communities through creative action and rehabilitation, but while at the same time continuing to demand accountability from our governments and continuing to demand for aid and reallocation of resources to address the climate and socioeconomic crisis. So sustenance goes hand in hand with solidarity, and artists play a role in this. Our art is very important in spreading the people's demands for food security and environmental justice, for upholding our rights, and for raising our national consciousness. And but also as part of countries in the global south, uh, the most crucial at this time are our warm bodies as artists ourselves in joining the masses in our collective struggle against global oppression. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyana. Okay. So right now we will have 20 minutes Q&A sessions with the speakers. So for the participants, if you have any question that you wish to ask, you can actually type in the chat box, or you can use the raise hand button and then unmute yourself to ask our speakers. All right. So just now we actually have one question in the chat box. All right. So the question is for both speakers. So are there any artists that get arrested or get threatened by the government just because they use art as activism tool? I think we can start with maybe Alyana first.
Hello, yes.
Yeah.
Are there any artists arrested when by the government? Yes, there are a handful of artists who were arrested um, by the government because of what they stand for. Maybe one example would be Marlon Maldos. He's an artistic director and choreographer, and he led cultural activities for the youth and peasant communities. And he was brutally killed by state forces. And he's just one of the example of many instances of harassment and threats from the government. There was also this artist from Cebu who tried to post a satire on Facebook about COVID because she was trying to make fun of her local government's response and negligence to the COVID crisis. And suddenly she was arrested because they accused her of misinformation, something like that. There are so many other instances. Now, um, the uh, there are even celebrities, like women celebrities, being red tagged. Red tag means they tag you as communist terrorists. So there are even celebrities who are tagged by military generals, just because they speak out about certain issues, just because they criticize the government, and they are accused of holding arms and participating in armed conflict, something like that. So there are many examples, but these are just some of them.
How about Karina? Like the question is, are there any artists get arrested or get threatened by the government because they use art as activism too, like in your perspective?
I'm coming from the same culture with Alyana, like from the Philippines, but I live here in Malaysia. And I always believe that in each and every country, you do have this different set of rules and cultural parameters. Like I say, it's all about the parameters that was set by the government as well. But then if you have seen like the things that we've been doing so far, none of us got arrested. None of us got arrested so far. Yeah. And I don't know if I will endure being in jail. But then because art is really powerful and it can really change perspectives. Yeah, but we just have to be mindful. I'm just going to add that we just have to sometimes be mindful, even as an artist. Like I'm an immigrant here in Malaysia. Sometimes I cannot even post like nude paintings that I made. Like I want to express myself. Like this is my painting about women empowerment and all sorts. However, there would always be censorship. Again, it still falls back to the set of parameters in each and every country. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, so next question we have, do you believe that art is a powerful, harmless tool that can be used to show dissent and fight oppression? Yeah, I think either Karina or Alyana, you can answer this question. Karina, you are muted.
Okay, so let me answer that. Yes, I do believe, like, I'm a practitioner of this. I'm harmless. We're harmless. I'm also an artist. But what we do is just like, if you cannot be them, then perhaps join them or just like compliment them. Or, being an activist, both, it has like different ends too. Like, we cannot polarize like this, we should be against the government or we should just like pro government. No, we can just like balance it out. Yeah, we can balance it out. And yeah, sometimes depends on how you use the medium and then the messaging. Like in the examples of Rastra, it's very powerful. And like in the sharing, you see like how powerful the message is, and it's not really harmful. Yeah, it's actually, it invites like collaboration. So sometimes, again, it's going to be like changing perspective. We cannot be too aggressive sometimes. The artwork itself can be aggressive, but then as a person, I'm a believer that we should not, should not be violent. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Karina. How about Alyana? I'm also curious about, do you believe that art is a powerful, harmless tool that can fight against the oppression?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely harmless because art does not aim to spread violence unless you are a person, or unless you serve for the fascistic government, then you are the one creating the the output, if it can be even called creative, to do that. But in the end, the aim of art is really not for violence, so it's definitely harmless. But at the same time, it's also very powerful because art has the power to arouse our feelings, our emotions, because it can encourage us to mobilize and take action. Like what Rastra said earlier, it can encourage us to take action about a certain issue. It's definitely harmless, but the reason why so many artists still get harassed and threatened by the government is because they think that the art they are making is harmful to them, is harmful to their right, to their operations. Like if somebody is speaking out against oppression, then that's not good for the government because they have their own interests, and they if somebody is attacking them, they're the ones who are hurt. But it's not um it's up to us, like how to move from that, and how we can use our art um to further push the interests of the majority. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alyana. And we have another question from a participant as well. The question is, are there any law anywhere in Southeast Asia or international policy that protects activists, especially those who only want to be heard by the government? If none, is there any ongoing conversation anywhere to set up protection for activists? This is a very interesting question, I would say. Yeah. Do you need me to? Okay, Alyana, yes.
Yeah, there are existing laws. Like there is an international humanitarian laws that exist that protects any individual, even activists or not, from harassment or killings or threats. But the problem is there is a very deep systemic problem that um, that becomes a barrier for these laws to be pushed. Like for example, in the Supreme Court, in the Philippine government, like there are so many petitions to junk the anti-terrorism law, but the Supreme Court is not approving those kinds of petitions. So it's still up to those people in power and the system in place and the people who are implementing these policies. So even if there are existing laws, we still cannot rely on them. That's why there are still those artists who um try to circumvent. That's why I said, like, struggling is like a creative action, right? Because they try to circumvent around these laws that they cannot rely on. Like for example, if we want to spread awareness about certain campaign, like in the examples of the murals, right? Some street artists go to the street even if they know it's illegal to make a mural or do graffiti there. They still do it. So yeah.
All right, thank you, Alyana. How about Karina? Because since just now you mentioned that you are in Malaysia, which is the same country as me, and do you know that is any law or any in maybe not only Malaysia but other parts of Southeast Asia that protect activists?
You're also from Malaysia, right? I think you know the Seditious Act, right? Yeah, the law. Yeah, the law on sedition. But still, in here, I think, like I say, it's all about the parameters of the government in per country on how they can protect their culture, their values, their religion, and all. And there are countries who's rather, how will I put it in a diplomatic way? Like they try to be not really defensive, but then they do have actions to conceal such act of hatred and all. They're quite good in that. So also the media is a little bit controlled, I may say. Yeah. And then it's a growing concern too, because you don't want to express yourself and at the same time be arrested or harassed. And recently in Malaysia, we had this mural and then someone vandalized it. I think you've heard the news. You follow this news, right? But I wish to answer also this. Maybe this would be similar as well to the question of Aisha from Brunei. Yeah. So her question is, yeah, like to be reprimanded again. Like, it depends. But however, the world, with art, you can go beyond borders. You can go beyond borders with art. So like from there, from the very definition of it and its usage, like you shouldn't be too worried about it. Yeah, because it's beyond the borders of your country as well. Like whatever you wanted to do. I know there are certain matters, like also in Brunei, that you cannot talk about, discuss about. However, like again, you can always come up with you can always work with different platforms outside your country. Yeah, it's better to be safe. And again, it's all about messaging. And again, there's this platform like the ASEAN Youth Forum where you can share it. And there are many other platforms out there. And we are here to help you out if you would need any. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you perhaps at the ASEAN meeting there in Brunei next year. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Karina. And then maybe Alyana, you can also share about maybe is there any advice to the writer or comic creator who want to tell story about raising awareness but they're scared to do it because of the government? Yeah, is there any advice?
Yeah, this is a very legitimate concern because of the increasing oppression happening, especially in our countries. So yeah, I mean, it's okay if you're scared, but I guess what you can do is, if you want to make a creative output or a work, try to make something that's very close to your heart, that is very close to your issues. You can try to make something about a story or the narrative of somebody or a community that really strikes you and really arouses you and really touches you. Because if you try to make art about it, you know that it's the truth, right? So if you are just trying to speak the truth, then there's really nothing to be scared about, right? So of course, in unlucky situations where some artists get reprimanded because of that, it's not their fault. So always just keep yourself centered in thinking that, yeah, I'm just making art so I can speak the truth. My aim is really not to um like terrorize anybody, right? So like, yeah, I guess that's my advice. Just make something that is close to your heart and your issues and your community's issues.
Yeah. That's just to add to that, like you can never sell what you don't know. Yeah, you don't want to be a fake activist. Yeah, saying that, oh, I do art, and
Yeah.
oh, you don't want your art to be pretentious. So you can never sell what you don't know. So first, you need to know. Alyana was right.
Yeah.
You know, Alyana is right. You need to do something close to your heart. Yep, you gotta be real there.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So I think we can open one question from the participants to actually unmute and ask the speaker. So may I ask, is there anyone wish to unmute themselves and ask question? I will give like 10 seconds for you to unmute yourself. Yeah. Or you can use the raise hand button if you wish to unmute yourself. Anyone? Okay. Okay, so yeah, I think it's okay. So if you still have any questions, you can always type in the chat box, and then our speakers can answer you. So right now, I would say from the Q&A session and also the information that shared by Karina and Alyana and also Rastra about his case studies, I learned a few things. Like, for example, I know that art can be a very powerful tool to unite people, to advocate issues, and also raise awareness. And art is definitely a harmless tool. It's definitely a harmless tool to advocate the issues. Yeah, and art is also very powerful in terms of it can change how people think, like how it can really change how people think and arouse the people attention, to attract people's attention to be conscious about this issue. Yeah, I think it's very important. And I think that's the end of our Q&A session. Yeah, and then